Thank you so much for joining us today for our alumni panel. And so we're going to be asking some questions of the different panelists, but first I'll do a quick run through for their introductions. So we have with us today Casey Lee, who is the campaign project manager at We Are Home. We have Juan Espinosa, who's the undergraduate student affairs officer for the UCLA Department of Spanish and Portuguese. We have Mac Casey, senior consultant at Guidehouse, and Miloni Ghani, who is the founder of Experience International LLC, faculty member at Foothill College, and a program manager at Draper Hills. Thank you all for joining us today. So first, I'm going to ask a question of Miloni. Could you answer for us, what has been your career path since you graduated UCLA?
As some of you might have seen, I spent a really long time, a long happy time at UCLA, and I would say that my career path was a little circuitous in that after undergrad, I took a small break in terms of my academics, and I actually spent a year in Hawaii at the East-West Center on a fellowship there. I tried law school, found out it wasn't for me, so there's no harm in doing things and realizing they're not for you. And then I actually was also a Reber Hall front desk manager. So I have a lot of Bruin history in me. After that, I returned to academia where I was able to complete my master's and PhD in Moore Hall at the School of Education, which ultimately propelled me into continuing my work in international education. And all of that was stemmed from my initial education abroad experience at the Complutense in Madrid. So everything kind of led to another in terms of whether or not it helped me understand what I didn't want to do. For example, when I had tried law school, I realized how constrained I felt. And there are plenty of people who are happy with that path, but it just wasn't for me. And all I could think about is like all the wonderful things I was doing just 2 years ago when I was studying abroad in Spain, and how I just felt like my soul was dying a little every day when I didn't have those international experiences, connections with all sorts of people, and that constant stimulation from just seeing and experiencing new things. And that was always there, planted in me from undergrad. And then when I went into grad school, I decided that those are the experiences I want to focus on. And I had a lot of interesting opportunities through UCLA, studying abroad again at the doctoral level in Singapore, also teaching English in Chile. And all of that led to, after now nearly 15 years, more than 15 years in the international higher education space, ultimately founding my own consultancy so that I can continue the projects that I love so much. And at the same time, the educational value of UCLA was so strong, and it really made me want to pay it forward in many ways. So I also have finally found my home in the academic world in terms of teaching. And so I teach global studies and 21st century job skills at Foothill College as well, which is an incredible experience and helps me tie all these things together. And every time I'm teaching, I am always telling my students how instrumental having an opportunity abroad can be in changing your perspective, whether it's a study abroad trip that's a year or a travel study program that's just a few weeks to a quarter, whatever you can do, totally take it. And it also, my last piece I will touch upon that, since you did mention, I also manage a program, a really awesome program at Stanford University called the Draper Hill Summer Fellows Program. And what that does is kind of the reverse of study abroad, in that we bring people from all over the world, social impact leaders from emerging democracies, for an intensive 3-week program for them to retrain their minds and refresh their thinking in terms of the topics of democracy development and the rule of law. So I would say study abroad was really the catalyst for much of my career choices, helping me decide what I liked and what I didn't like. And on that note, I will return the floor to you, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Melody. That's great. I'm going to ask the same question of Juan. What has been your career path since graduation?
Hi, everyone. Juan Espinosa here. Thank you for having me. Much like Milani, my career path has also not been linear. I also wanted to go to law school. Also, I thought after I graduated UCLA, and I actually was a paralegal for about a year. But I applaud to you for actually going into law school, because I didn't even get that far. I told myself, if I don't enjoy this job as a paralegal, I'm definitely not gonna like being an attorney. So I kind of left it alone. And so I came back to academia because it's the space that I've always felt very familiar with. I pretty much grown up here. I graduated from UCLA in 2014, and did study abroad programs. And so I think that if anything, for graduating seniors, what I would give you as an advice is don't be afraid to try and follow your passion. Much like myself, I thought I wanted to do something in the legal world, but at least I gave it a shot, and I saw that it wasn't for me as well. So at least I have that question answered, right? And I really don't have to wonder much longer and say, I wonder what would have happened if I would have actually gone to law school. So yeah, don't be afraid of following your passions and pursuing what you really want to do. And I would say this is your time to explore and like to really follow what it is that you want to really do, based on the things that you've done, any service you've done, or any experiences you might have already had abroad that really had an impact on you. Maybe if you did research abroad, that could be a good place to start and look back and see what did you really enjoy the most out of that experience, and how can you maybe build from that, and how can you make a career out of it, right? Something that study abroad really impacted me and has influenced my career path is that I always wanted to work with students and with a diverse group of people. I enjoy meeting people from different walks of life, from different paths, from different countries, different cultures, and that's something that study abroad exposed me to. Even though I am born and raised in Mexico, I did study abroad in my own country, and it was a completely different experience because I did research, which is an opportunity that I didn't have when I was growing up there. So doing research in my own country, in my home country, was an amazing experience because I was able to recalibrate in a way my own ideologies. And I like the way Melanie put it, refreshing my mind as to what it means to me, for example, to be a Mexican person. And I also had the opportunity to go to Europe on another travel study program, where I also did research, and that also impacted me. And eventually, because I realized that I enjoyed putting myself out of my comfort zone, and getting to know different people and new places and different cities. So I decided to apply to a graduate school in the East Coast. So I will be going to grad school soon as well. So
It's great. Congratulations, Mom. So next, I'm going to ask Mac. Can you tell us a little bit about how your study abroad experience influenced or helped you prepare for your career path?
Sure, I definitely can. Thanks, Danielle, and thanks to IEO for having me today as well. So my name is Matt Casey. 5 years ago, I was in your shoes. And as far as my career path, I thought mine was circuitous, but hearing these other stories, I think mine seems probably more on the linear route. How study abroad impacted my career path. So I started, first off, coming out of UCLA with a business economics and political science double major. I started right away at the Deloitte advisory practice in San Francisco. So from there, I think my study abroad experience has really showed me that maybe there was more than just that job that I was doing there. And it really pushed me toward going to graduate school and really moving into more of an international focus. So from there, I went first to grad school at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies in DC, onward into international consulting in the finance space, looking at access to finance in a bunch of different countries, including the Kingdom of Lesotho, including Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire. And then finally into my current role at Guidehouse, where I'm doing more of data analytics and more standard consulting again. But I know soon the travel bug will hit me and I'll be back on the road. But as far as how study abroad has influenced it, I think it taught me two things, and I'm going to speak a little bit in cliches here, if you don't mind. I think the first one is that it taught me that the world is big and that there's a lot of opportunities that I would have never even thought about without going abroad. Some of these were understanding how you would operate a startup in so many different localities, moving between so many different borders. Something else like what really goes into art valuation. I don't act like I understand really what these mean, but I think it just showed me that there's more out there than what I originally thought and what I'd seen before going abroad and talking to different people and seeing what their experiences were like and where their path is going to take them. And then to continue this cliche on the other side, I think it also taught me that the world is small, that the connections that you make in these programs really can be helpful for you moving forward. I mean, I still meet up with my friends whenever I'm in Europe as well from my study abroad, both in Hong Kong and in the Netherlands. And it also taught me that the world is small and that you need to carve out your place and what you want to do there too. And if you want to make something happen, you can absolutely make it happen. If that means going and meeting up with those people from study abroad, if that means going and living somewhere that you experienced in your travels, you can make it happen. The world is small, it's yours. So go out there and try it. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Mac. And then for Casey, could you tell us about any skills that you might have learned on your program that you've incorporated into your career?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. Good to meet you all. So I studied abroad in Geneva, Switzerland in 2017, spring and summer. In that program specifically, it was you study in the spring semester and then there was an optional internship component. So definitely learned a lot of both soft and kind of hard skills at the same time during my experience. So I would say kind of echoing what others have mentioned, the interpersonal relationships aspect of study abroad, it's like talking to these professors, talking to other international students, like really kind of reframing how we communicate with each other and also like better understand each other, the walks of lives we all come from, has really kind of today for me as a project manager for the We Are Home campaign, which is a pretty big coalition of 100 plus labor and immigrants' rights organizations, kind of find my way and find the different like norms and expectations and ways to like carry yourself professionally. So even from an abroad experience of like talking to these people whom you would never otherwise talk to, I still definitely do carry that with me today. I think another kind of skill would be flexibility. So of course, studying abroad in the University of Geneva for myself, there was a whole new grading system, a whole new like set of tests and study kind of ways I had to reorient myself, adapt to it, and still set myself up for success, even though it's not what I was used to for UCLA. Semester system was nice as a break from the quarter system, but there was also like 2 tests in total and there was no homework assignments. So finding myself kind of responding to that change and problem solving as I learn in that environment, that's kind of a skill I still bring to me as well to this day, is the whole flexibility part. And I think lastly, skills-wise from study abroad, flexibility is something that is also really important professionally speaking. In addition to flexibility, there's also patience too. Basically knowing folks coming from different countries. So Geneva itself was a very international kind of hub where not only were there Swiss students, but also like people from all over the world wanting to study in Geneva precisely because it was the home of the UN, the home of the WHO, WTO, wanting to all plug in together and learn about international relations. So carrying that with me is like, oh, like those folks from these countries, they have different backgrounds, different ways that they were raised. How can I, be patient and talking to them, not just, coming in with my American kind of brain and thinking, oh, everyone thinks this way, but having that patience and self-awareness to really find yourself in like difficult situations, being able to navigate those. I still carry that patience as well in this coalition kind of environment that I'm working in. So I think kind of summing up like interpersonal communications, flexibility and patience were kind of the 3 things I took from study abroad.
Thank you so much, Casey. So I'm going to go back to Miloni and we're going to run through all 4 of you here to ask if you have any tips or recommendations for the graduates, any specific advice or things you wish you would have known when you were sitting in their shoes. waiting to graduate, the whole world ahead of you.
We are here today to celebrate the fact that you guys are all graduating, but there is always a small part of me that wishes I took more advantage of things that were available to me as a student. And no one had actually kind of put that in my head, that once you kind of leave the student opportunity, so whether you're graduating now from undergrad and going into grad school, I do want folks to know, like, there are a certain collection of opportunities that are definitively easier to have under the auspices of being a student. So if you do go to grad school after this, like, make sure you study abroad again if you can, or take advantage of all those internships, use the career centers and things like that. You won't realize how amazing opportunities you guys have at UCLA and being a part of the UCLA alumni now, and really milk all that that you were just hearing about in terms of like Handshake and Forage and all those things. So those are things that I personally regretted not doing. Joining the Alumni Association and taking advantage of all that, I did not do any of that as a fresh grad from undergrad. And that was something that I really kind of, looking back, wish I had done at that point in time. And the other piece of advice that I want to share is 20 years later, I look back at my time right out of undergrad, and I think that time was so much longer then. Time in my life is short now. So anything that you do in your 20s, you can kind of not suffer from any mistakes that you might make career-wise, or like if you have a major shift in your 40s or 50s, you really have to think twice about it. But in your 20s, you still have space to experience things that maybe you wouldn't think are the best fit for you, but you need to try them before you can actually say that. You can experiment more freely in your 20s with your career. And as time moves forward, even if you think right now, oh my gosh, I have to go to graduate school, I have to go to law school, or I need to do this and that, and I can't have a gap in my resume. Taking a gap year in your 20s is so much easier to recover from. And in many ways, it's not even a recovery, it's going to actually help your own personal growth than trying to do that later in life when you have a lot more commitments and people possibly vying for your time and attention. So that's what I would really have to say. And I'm happy to chat with anybody further on those things as well.
That's really great advice. Thank you. Juan, what about you? Do you have any specific questions? I know you already included a couple. Is there any other advice you would pass on to the graduating class?
Yes, definitely learn to manage your time. Learn to be to manage your time wisely, and do things that make you happy. Explore your passions. Don't be afraid to take risks. This is your time to do those things. And as it's been said before, this is your time to kind of like try it out and see if it works out for you, see if you like it, see if you find a new passion or a new talent. Explore, how would I put this? Explore your talents. That's what I'm trying to say. If you're talented or if you're passionate about something, or there's something that you're really good at or something that you really enjoy doing, this is your time to actually to further explore those things. I will also say, never stop being ambitious, because that same ambition that got you to UCLA is gonna get you to your next step in your career and your education. So keep that ambition alive, because that's what dreams are made of. So, and just as we like to say at UCLA, we're the optimists, and sky is the limit. So I would say, just take that with you in your heart, and I'm sure you're gonna do really great things with your education.
Thank you. And Mac, do you have any advice?
Yeah, so what I was thinking about through all of this is, and throughout the pandemic year as well, is that what I would say to you graduates is that you're really running your own race. I mean, I think it's really easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing, especially in this age of LinkedIn, but really your life is your own. If you're thinking 3 years from now, I don't know, the titles, the degrees, the certifications, the publications, it's all fine. You set your own pace and you have your own challenges, your own interests. And because of that, I would just say, don't beat yourself up over with comparisons to others. Even if it seems like everyone else has it together, trust me, they really don't. And you're doing great. Thanks.
That's sage wisdom there. I would agree with that. Okay, and then last but not least, Casey, do you have anything else that you want to add? Any pieces of advice from your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. I think in addition to being nimble on your feet and doing that introspection of like what you want to do, what your future ambitions can be, I think one very specific piece of advice, even though, as we just heard, folks have very different ways to where they end up today in their professional lives. But one thing you could do is if you go on LinkedIn or any of the UCLA alumni kind of portals and like just pick out one person. So if you see someone, if you know you want to work in politics, for example, like be a speechwriter for a member of Congress, you can kind of see the different experiences that led to them that way. Not that you have to replicate it. Obviously, everyone has their own pace and everyone has their own ways to get to that point. But it's a nice kind of framework that you can operate under if you just, see, oh, I want to be the next AOC, or I want to be the next Speaker Pelosi, or any of those kinds of idols that you have professionally speaking. Just kind of follow their life paths. We all have different ones, but there might be specific, hints and clues that kind of indicate, oh, like if these folks in this specific office kind of go through this pipeline, I think that's one way you could look at it. But of course, I think the most valuable kind of piece of information is after doing that research, just going back to your little sheet of paper and just mapping out for yourself. Because again, everyone has different ways to get to their own way of success. So that'd be my kind of last piece of advice.
Great. Thank you so much to the panelists. I feel like that's a really positive note for us to end on. So I will just say that I, having been an advisor and worked through my career in international education, sometimes study abroad can sort of surprisingly take you in new avenues and new directions. I had no idea I personally would be still working in this field, having studied abroad such a long time ago now. So I think wise words to keep in touch. And if you want to connect with any of our panelists, they're all available on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to them. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording and we'll move on to the next section of the program. Thank you all to the panelists.